and that's been really amazing. So hoping that this afternoon session really spreads that message. And so I will stop sharing my screen in a second. So our first talk today will be by Luke, Steller and Bonnie Teece. They will be talking on Learn by Doing, a new approach to online engagement with astrobiology. Really excited for this talk because I also participated in what they're talking about today during Science Week, and I got a lot out of it. And this is coming from a scientific perspective and not just in the general audience. So I think it'll be a really good way for people to learn how to push online engagement and learning online, especially in this post-COVID world. So Bonnie and Luke, are you there?
Hey George,
yeah, we're both here.
Setting up slides. Yep.
Yeah, so just start screen sharing when you're ready.
So is that slide coming up? Can you see that, Georgia?
Yeah, it's all good on my end.
Fantastic. So hi everyone. I'll turn my camera on so you can see me making my way through this project. Here we go. So I'm here on Gadigal land as well from Sydney, Australia, and I'm here to talk to you about Practical, which is a new online learning initiative that Bonnie Teece, myself, along with Shane Hangst and Dave Edwards and others from the University of New South Wales, have really cobbled together over the last few months, and we're really happy with it. So we want to share that with you. So a bit about, here we go, a bit about us. So this is Bonnie and myself, and Bonnie's adorable dog called Winston. We're both PhD students at the Australian Centre for Astrobiology, and we're both really passionate about outreach. I think a lot of our drive to doing science, not only for research sake and for knowing about the world, it's to share that with other people, which I'm sure a lot of people listening now would really resonate with. So I think we're all in that same boat. And we really learned a lot about outreach and our love for it when we did this student field trip last year in the Pilbara. So for those of you who caught Martin's talk that he gave 2 days ago, we were very lucky enough to get funding to take a whole bunch of local students from the local high school to do a 2-day field trip. They talked to NASA and ESA scientists. They looked at these ancient fossils. You can see here, this is a geological timeline activity that Bonnie created, where she stitched together over 48 meters, I think it was, of fabric to identify the different geological timelines of the Earth. And kids were running around and trying to figure out where different animals fitted on that timeline. So we had a lot of fun. And I think the main takeaway point that both Bonnie and I got out of it was that these students, they learned the best from doing the science themselves. You can tell them as much as you can in the classroom, but you have to be out there and do the science to really get a good handle of it. So we had all these amazing workshops planned this year in person to get students to do the science and to actually understand what it's all about firsthand. But then obviously COVID hit and we had to pivot incredibly fast to a totally online teaching environment, like I'm sure a lot of people listening had to. So we started looking around, seeing what other workshops are out there, what other programs are being run. And there's some amazing content out there, but there are a few issues that we saw. There was a gap in the market that we thought we could really build on. And those issues were mainly a lot of the resources aren't developed for online content. People will make a PDF form that teachers can take and give to their students, or workshops they can do in the classroom, but there was a real gap for purely online workshops out there that we thought we could hopefully change. The other thing is that a lot of science workshops, there's a big barrier there, mainly with jargon or diversity in the way that they display what scientists were, that were keeping out a lot of people from feeling included there or feeling like they belonged in that scientific space, which limited people joining into those workshops. And the third thing we found that there was a lot of barriers for individuals to join these workshops. A lot of them are designed for teachers to run in the classroom. So they're built to have a teacher as a facilitator. So that teacher will go in and, hand out sheets or mark assessments, that kind of stuff. But if you're just an individual, it's very hard for you to engage in that process. So from that, we created this thing called Practical, and we wanted to do things a bit differently. So the first main real difference that we were doing is that we wanted to collaborate and build up on existing work. So we didn't want to reinvent the wheel and start from scratch. There's all these great resources out there. Can we just tweak them to make them a bit more accessible online? The second thing that we did was that we designed sustainable workshops. And what that meant for us was that a lot of workshops or activities, you need to have someone interacting. You have to have someone on the other end giving a talk or running a program, which is very difficult to scale up. And it's hard when you have different time zones all around the world. And it's hard to keep going for a long period of time. So we want to make workshops that could last forever, that didn't have any extra involvement from us once we'd released them, so that as many people as we wanted, whenever they wanted to, could access these workshops. We also had a breakdown our workshop into modules so that people could do it whenever they wanted in short, sort of discrete packets. And we also wanted to assess our impact and learn from that. And you're going to be hearing from Bonnie in a second about our efforts in that. So these are our practical workshops. We created 3 workshops, one on conserving endangered species using a GIS mapping tool to understand where a endangered bird lived in Australia and how to preserve those species. One was on monitoring air pollution with ANSTO, which is the local nuclear technology organization here in Australia. But the one that we think you'll all be interested in will be our Exploring Habitable Worlds one that we developed with the ACA, which is all around looking for life on other planets. So in these workshops, we had a whole bunch of really great information about looking for life on Mars, but a lot of it really revolved around the JPL, NASA's JPL Planet Makeover. So this is an amazing teaching tool that they created where you have all these tabs along the bottom of the screen where you can change a planet's distance from its star, the planet type, star type, and it would change the image of that planet. You can see how the planet changes, and then you can click on that planet and it gives you information about, is it a super Earth? Is it a gas giant? How does the planetary parameters changing affect what kind of planet it's made? So it was really great. It gave the students online an ability to do science themselves, to change the planet type, see how that changed. And then we gave them actual data from exoplanets that we gave them the distance from the star and the planet size, and they can plug that in there to see what kind of planet it was and match that up to their academic study to see if it was correct. And a lot of times it was. The simulator worked quite well. We had a whole bunch of videos in there as well to make them a bit more interesting, information on habitable zones, and questions. So we either had short answer questions or matchettes like this where they can kind of link things up together to see if they got the question right, matching terms and that kind of stuff. So really quite an interesting workshop. We think was quite engaging. And the numbers kind of showed that as well. You know, we had over 837 participants in 1 week alone doing our workshop. That was over 470 hours of active participation by our enrolled students. We had a breakdown of high school students, as well as individuals and teachers doing it to learn a bit more. As Georgia said, you know, she was a PhD student in astrobiology and she did our the Conserving Endangered Species workshop and she loved it. She learned a whole lot of stuff about ecology. So it was for a broad range of audiences. Things we learned from this was that we have to learn from our audience, and Bonnie's going to touch on that now. We also learned that you have to scaffold the teaching. So you have no idea what the students are going to be needing to understand a concept, what instructions they need. So when you scaffold it, you provide them everything from a couple of very loose instructions so they can go and explore themselves, to detailed videos and how to use the Planet Simulator and everything in between, a bit of text, a bit of, you know, just a few sort of screen grabs showing what's going on. So no matter what level you are, you can engage in that and those instructions are helpful without being overbearing or giving them too much information. And a thing we really learned as well, you have to use the resources that are available to you because, yeah, trying to reinvent the wheel, trying to make a simulator like that from scratch would have been incredibly difficult. So that was really amazing. So just in the next steps, we've actually been given a grant by U21 to partner up with University of Auckland and McMaster University, some PhD students there, to create an astrobiology focus workshop. So look for them when they're coming out. And if anyone wants to collaborate, if you think that your research could be, you know, a really good opportunity to make into a workshop like this, please reach out and have a chat with us. So now I think Bonnie is going to take over my screen and, or screen share herself and tell you a bit about an academic study we're doing based on these workshops.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Luke. So if you can stop screen sharing so I can share my screen, that would be awesome. So at the same time as running the workshops, we also held a voluntary study. So for our participants who were over 18, they could opt into this voluntary study, and it would require no extra work on their part. That would mean that we could have a look at the data from them. So I'm just going to race through these results because we don't have very much time left. But the first result I want to show you is the age distribution of the participants for this workshop. So I'm focusing only on the Habitable Worlds workshop. And what we found that was really surprising was that we had a really strong age skew. And we expected that we would have actually a strong age skew the opposite way, because we're advertising a lot to retirees who were doing re-engaging in learning. And we knew from our Facebook statistics that the most people that were viewing our videos on Facebook were people in the age range between like 35 to 50. So we were really perplexed, like, where did all these young people come from? That's a great result, but one we weren't expecting. So we looked at age distribution as a function of country, and what we actually found was that our advertising was successful in Australia, and we were getting the group that we had expected to, but we had these surprises where 53% of the participants in our workshop were from US, and then 16% were from India and 15% from Australia. So we had this really cool thing where these workshops must have spread by word of mouth, which is fantastic and was really great. So this is just another version of the age distribution by country, but through all of the countries that participate in the workshop. So you can see that we have a spread through almost the entire world. We've got people from Europe, from South America, and from Northern America as well, which is great, as well as Oceania, of course. And we were also advertising to try to get people re-engaged with the process of science. So when we first looked at these results, we actually thought, this is amazing. Most of the people are in high school. We've really got people who are re-engaging with science. Most people have the highest education is high school, sorry. But when we looked at the education as a function of age, we found that this is just bottlenecking because people were too young to have finished a degree. And too young to have finished their bachelor's degree. So we're still only attracting the groups that are most likely to do scientific workshops. So we have to work on diversifying our advertising and working out how to get other groups interested in science outreach. So what we did was we bottlenecked we marked our workshops with a question at the start and the same question at the end. We asked, what does it mean to study something scientifically? We did this within the workshop because usually you would ask this question in a pre and a post survey, but typically you get less than a 50% response on a post survey. So we thought that this might be a good way of eliminating that problem, and then we'd also have a better control on whether our workshops were the things that changed that answer. But this backfired on us. We actually only had 17 out of 70 people answer both questions. That's less than 20%. We had, of the people who only answered the first question, it was 27, and for people who only answered the late question, it was 6. So it seems like maybe people were tired by the time it got to the end of the workshop. So we wanted to investigate this further. So what we did was look at the second last question we asked in the workshop. But before I get to that, I just want to share with you some of the answers that people gave to this. So when we asked the question, what does it mean to study something scientifically? People answered with things like, it involves an observation, forming a hypothesis or a prediction, experimentation, and a conclusion. This participant's answer changed at the end of the workshop. And one of the best things I think about the change in their answer was they changed it to make a defensible conclusion.
Hey, so you just have a couple minutes left.
Yep. So another participant said to use facts to explain aspects of the universe and change to approach a subject with an open mind and curiosity while applying the concepts of the scientific method to learn more. So the answer length did not significantly change between the first and post. So the answer length median was 19 words in the first and 17 words in the post. And when we factored in the second last question, which was how do you think we should look for life on Mars? Answers revolved around looking below the surface, looking for fossils and finding water, all things we've been talking about within this conference. And so we looked at the answer length for the Mars question related to the first and post question. And we found there wasn't a significant difference. In fact, people used less words to answer the Mars questions than they did for the nature of science question. So it does seem like maybe people were tired after doing an hour-long workshop, and probably using these pre and post surveys is a much better idea than trying to exhaust people all in once to think about these large concepts. So that's the end of our presentation for today. Anna has very nicely shared a link to the workshops in the chat function. If you do the workshops, please don't sign up for the study, because you have seen the results that could invalidate some of the results that we would be getting. But please pass it on to students, to other people, because the more people we get to do the study, the better results we'll have and the better resolution.
Thanks, Luke and Bonnie. That was really fantastic. It's great to hear about such an important scientific outreach measure and education measure. You just have a lot of people in the comments saying a lot of really great things about what you have been doing and have been asking for collaborations. And since we've run out of time, I think we'll move on and you can continue that chat in the discussion. So let's move on to Rabeea. Abdul Rasheed talking about the future of astrobiology in Pakistan. And just before I pass it on to her, just letting people know that from now on, I will be informing you when you've reached 11 minutes. Forgot to do that at the beginning. All right, now feel free to share your screen and we'd love to hear from you.
Hi everyone, I'm just going to share my screen. Yeah. I hope you can see my screen.
Yep, I can see.
Okay. Okay, so hi everyone, this is Rabeea Rasheed and I'm a science communicator from Pakistan. Today, I'm also working with Blue Marble Space Institute of Science. Today, I'm going to share with you that how do I see the future of astrobiology in Pakistan and some of the work that I've been doing to promote astrobiology here. Before I start, I would like to share a little bit about myself. For as long as I can remember, I was always interested in big questions like what is life and what is the meaning of life, and also why do I exist. So at that time I was very little. I was a very little kid and I had no idea about science. And I was trying to look for these questions and answer these questions by different fields. For example, I was in theater and I was doing music and stuff like that. But I was unable to satisfy myself to find satisfactory answers. But with time, I was very lucky to find astrobiology. One day, my sister was reading a book to me, and there was a whole chapter on astronomy in it. And that made me think that all the stars that I can actually see in the night sky, they are distant suns, and they have their own planets. And that made me think about the possibility of life in the universe. So with that, I just kept involving in the field, and I never thought that I would become a science communicator, but I became a science communicator and started teaching astrobiology at a middle school level in 2017. So in this slide, you can actually see that each session had more than 400 students. I started teaching astrobiology back in 2017, and each session was 1 year long. And each session had more than 400 students, and you can see that with time it was increasing, but it fell down back in 2020 again, because not everyone has access to the internet, and that's why many students were unable to join the online sessions. I'm also studying psychology. I'm a student of psychology. I'm in the final year of my undergraduate study. I try to find way to teach astrobiology and find ways that I can actually compare these two fields, like psychology and astrobiology. So educational psychology is actually a field where you can actually study the scientific study of human behavior or human learning. What is the approach of learning in humans. So by studying educational psychology, I was able to learn that there are different types of learners. So I came to know that, okay, there are some people who learn by doing practical work. There are some students who learn better if they get to do hands-on activities. Some students learn better if they communicating some big ideas with them. For example, cosmic perspective. And some students learn through experiments. And in next slides, I'm going to share that how I'm actually doing that. I also teach them about astrobiology maths. I remember when I first went into a class and I was going to teach them about astrobiology math, they were not very happy about it, that we have to study maths in astrobiology as well. So by the end of our session, each and everyone was very, were deeply thinking about the percentage of time that planet had life of any type. And each and every one of them were thinking that, okay, the human life started at the very edge of our planet history. And it was very fascinating to see their reaction towards math when we talk about mathematics in the context of astrobiology. And it was very fascinating to see their response um, uh, and their reaction towards this one particular exercise that we had the opportunity to do in one of our sessions. I've also designed a workbook on astrobiology. It is particularly designed for grade 6. But after studying educational psychology, I try to put more focus on hands-on activities, because I was able to learn that if you do more hands-on activities, there's a possibility that you will be able to learn better about the subject that you are teaching and the subject that you are learning. So by the end of our session, I always ask them that, okay, how would you imagine aliens if we find any? After studying Drake equation and studying particular different topics in astrobiology, I ask them to make a picture of an alien, or I often ask them to write letters to alien. If we ever find aliens, what would you like to say to them? And most of the time, their letters are actually very funny. And if we talk about experiments, I also teach astronomy. And when we talk about space exploration, the study of light is very important. So I always try to tell them that there are different ways that you can actually learn about astrobiology. So we did one experiment known as William Herschel infrared experiment, where he was able to actually find infrared by measuring the temperature. In spite of the fact we cannot see the light, but we can actually measure its temperature. And my students, by the end of the session, one of my students came to me and said to me that, Miss, this is actually magic. That there is a form of light that we cannot see, but we can measure its temperature, and it does exist. And in the next session, I told them that we can actually use that kind of radiation, use different radiations for our own benefits. And these kinds of light that we cannot see, but we have invented some telescopes and they are us to improve our understanding of our universe. And it was very fascinating to share that experiment with my students. We also do some sort of fun activities like how to make a paper rocket. But I also try to share some technical sides of that like fun activity as well. For example, that how rockets actually work, and what is the history of rockets, and what is rocket science is all about. So it was very interesting activity to do with my students. I often arrange different kinds of workshops. Here you can see that my students are holding a small telescope. So I've been arranging different workshops on how to make your own telescope. So it was also one of the best experiment that I had with my students. And we also did that by the end of our session in class. So we had the opportunity to take a group photo as well. So looking at this picture, it reminds me that students were also able to share the telescope over the course of month. It was circulated, the telescope was circulated among the students for 1 to 3 weeks. I also have a small telescope that I use for observation, for lunar observation, and also for solar observation. I invite different organizations, astronomical organizations. This one is known as Lahore Astronomical Society, and they have a very huge telescope that can actually help you to see the surface of the sun. And I think that is very important for the young minds to see something something that huge, because you obviously cannot look at the sun directly. So this activity was very important, and they were able to learn about our sun more better, because we know that our sun is a source of energy for us. And in astrobiology, it is a very important role, because without sun, there will be no life. So that was another very important thing that I was able to do with my students. And also, I have a small And it's very challenging because those students have also, there's a language, hard to communicate science concepts and science, different science ideas with them. But this school is known as Noorga, and I went to Noorga almost 2 years ago, and I've been there for many times after that. Students over there, all these students are from grade 3, and they were so fascinated to learn about it. The day I went there at 11 p.m. and I left the school at 2 p.m. because they didn't let me go, and I had to take their old classes and teach them some basic stuff about astrobiology. And they were so fascinated to learn about it, and we did all the activities that I arranged in the whole year in just 3 hours with these students, and they were so fascinated to learn about it. It was very challenging to teach them about the science concepts, but it made me realize that, okay, I need to communicate these ideas better, and I should, realize that there should be less jargon and more simple stuff that even a simple, even a kid with 8 years old or 7 years old might be able to understand it better. So that was very unique experience for me to go there and teach these kids about astrobiology and space exploration. Also, so how my only future goal is to use the fascinating field of astrobiology to promote astrobiology, to inspire the Pakistani youth towards STEM education. So that is the plan that I'm actually planning to do, and I've been doing it since 2017. And my work, the problem with my work is that my work is only limited to different schools. And now I'm planning to reach out to general public in Pakistan. Although there are different organizations and they are doing very good work to promote astronomy and space exploration, but there are very small community of people who are working on promoting astrobiology in Pakistan. So I'm working on that, and I'm looking to collaborate with people, and I'm also I think that it would be a good idea to arrange webinar series on astrobiology, because and it would be a good idea, and maybe many people from different backgrounds, maybe many students, undergrad students, might become able to come forward from the background of chemistry and physics and biology and learn more about astrobiology. So I've been part of Blue Marble Space Institute of Science for more than 3 months, and my advisor is Dr. Gram Lahu, and he is a science communicator himself, and he's hosting Ask an Astrobiologist episodes. So being part of this organization is one of the best things that has ever happened to me. And I believe that I am a communicator, a better science communicator, because I was able to work on my writing skills. I was able to work on my, scientific facts, that how to, because if you're learning by yourself, you don't know if you're teaching, if the stuff that you're communicating is right or not. So having that, being part of that community, made me realize that, okay, there are different ways that you can actually do that. And I'm very thankful to Blue Marble Space for being there and helping me to promote astrobiology. And after becoming part of Blue Marble Space Institute of Science, I see the future of astrobiology in Pakistan is very, I think it's going to be very bright. And I would also like to thank some my local organizations. I'm also part of Astrobiology Network of Pakistan. I'm leading the Lahore chapter of this community. And I started my journey with Lahore Astronomical Society. And there are some bunch of amazing people. They are doing different outreaches work to promote astronomy here in Pakistan. I would also take time to thank Dr. Bruce Tamer, who helped me to design my astrobiology course in 2017, and he has been very kind enough to share his astrobiology material with me. I would also like to thank an astrobiologist, Tara from Australia, who is absolutely always there for me to help me throughout my journey, and to help me to improve my astrobiology course that I've been teaching for 3 years. That's it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for such a fantastic talk. So you have a lot of praise, just a lot of love coming from the chat at the moment. So you have one question, up or two. So one, can you share the link for your Year 6 astrobiology handout, maybe in the chat? And the other one was, how did you finance these programs and how did you start?
Sorry.
Oh, she's,
Yeah. Now I can hear you.
yeah. So just how did you finance these programs and start? Just quickly. Oh,
Thanks. I
maybe if we're having hearing
okay.
difficulties, we can continue this in the chat.
Yeah, sure, please.
All
Yeah.
right. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
And we'll,
Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you. Really enjoyed the talk. So now we're going to move on to Sarah Nolan, who's talking about Gen Z, the astrobiology generation. So Sarah, if you could share your screen and unmute yourself and show us your view. All right.
That is it working?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So yeah, Gen Z, the astrobiology generation. So why am I here today? Well, I'm a year 12 student at an all-girls high school in Sydney, Australia. I definitely don't work or study at any sort of university or research centre just yet, hopefully one day. But I just completed a major year 12 research project at the Australian Centre for Astrobiology, working with Mr. Luke Steller and Professor Martin van Kranendonk. And because of this amazing opportunity that they gave me to work with them over the last 8 months, I'm here to talk to you today about how my unique experiences engaging with astrobiology research at the centre this year and my experiences throughout high school, how they've shaped my desire to study at university, like studying science next year, and ultimately pursue a career in astrobiology. And why should this matter to you? Well, the experiences I've had, I believe, are a key example of how science engagement and communication activities work at its very best. Yeah. But how did I really get here? Sorry, that one. Well, it was really a series of very fortunate events occurring throughout high school, which nurtured my interest in space science. Year 10 saw me jetting off on a NASA trip to the Kennedy Space Center in Orlando, Florida with my school, which was a big deal coming all the way from Australia. The primary goal of this trip was to study the science behind rockets and to go shopping, with myself primarily fascinated by the rockets and my groups of friends that went with me by the shopping. In year 11, I was lucky enough to win a scholarship award to be one of 2 Australian student representatives at the 2019 International Space Camp, held at the US Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. 35 countries were represented by teachers and students from around the world, and it was there that I experienced one of the most amazing weeks of my life. The camp involved what I believe to be science engagement at its finest, which was experiencing microgravity through a specially designed scuba diving tank, taking part in simulated astronaut training, and participating in replica Mars and ISS missions with scale replica models and technology. An indescribably incredible trip. For example, now I have many like-minded friends from around the world. Most of them, however, want to become astronauts, not astrobiologists. And now, this year, in year 12, I undertook a research project at the ACA as part of the new science extension course at school, where students can find research mentors in universities or industries to work with to conduct real research. I had the most amazing experience, but I'm sad to report that many students in my class did not. They couldn't find researchers interested or available. I find a key success in this course was that science engagement and communication with students is a big priority at the ACA. But what do all my experiences have in common? Well, it was a bit of a chain reaction, but they were all made possible by many special people. In particular, my teachers and educators simply going the extra mile for me and for science. Beginning with the school putting the NASA trip together and seeking a government STEM grant to promote female participation. The amazing time I had on that trip cultivated my deep desire for me to get back involved with the space industry in one way or another. This led to my application for the scholarship at the US Space and Rocket Center, sponsored by ASG. Once being chosen for the scholarship, this saw me being featured on the cover of my local paper. Professor van Kranendonk, by I believe fate, saw the article and he became aware of my interest in astrobiology, prompting him to get in touch with my school giving me the opportunity to complete a research project with the ACA. Then, in order to make this possible, my science teacher pulled out all the stops in order to introduce the new science extension course into our school's curriculum, just to allow me to undertake the ACA project with credit towards my HSC. And finally, leading me to work with Mr. Luke Steller at the ACA, who gave up his own time to answer my many questions, shared his lab time, and of course his precious mineral samples with me for the research. And reflecting on this, I can see that every opportunity was due to science communication and engagement, hard at work in different ways. The teachers trying to lift the profile of science in my school with a NASA trip, the government offering STEM grants for female students, and my scholarship award had rules mandating one male and one female student, and finally the ACA inviting me to study with them to pursue my interests. Okay, so we all know the big question in astrobiology. Are we alone in the universe? Well, I think the answer we all have is no. But sometimes it feels like I'm alone at school. Here's what I mean. Unfortunately, I'm one of the only people in my grade of over 120 students planning on applying for a Bachelor of Science at university next year. Naturally, I've had to ask why so many girls lose interest in STEM. A lot is written online about it being from a lack of confidence to a lack of role models. And asking people at school, I've gotten very varying responses, from simple ones such as, it's too hard or it's too boring, to other more serious concerns, such as the difficulty which can be achieved more easily through easier subjects, which makes studying science undesirable for many students, and scholarships are often unattainable without a near perfect ranking. But of course, I'm looking this in a realistic way. Science is not for everyone, just as not every career path is not for everyone. And the fact is that unlike my friends, I follow NASA on Instagram, watch space documentaries, my favorite being Cosmos, A Space-Time Odyssey, have had a new scientist subscription and check the NASA Astrobiology website regularly for updates, not your typical teenager interests. So I've asked some of my friends, what's missing for them with science engagement? They've said things along the lines of this. The science demonstrations at university open days don't really attract mainstream school leavers, because cool explosions and light shows are fascinating, of course, and they do initially draw people in. But seeing these demonstrations, everyone seeing these demonstrations knows that this isn't what science is really like as a career. So, from my perspective, these demonstrations are fun, but it doesn't make someone want to do a science degree if they aren't already in it. Once drawn in, they need to be able to see the real, practical, amazing things that science in like a real world has to offer. They also say things like this. School STEM clubs and science competitions typically cater to students who are already in science, really immersed in it. Don't get me wrong, things like this, like STEM clubs, are very interesting and effective for some people, but being so intense, they can also confirm all the reasons why the larger school population isn't into it. Primary school is an awesome place to break negative stereotypes and build up students' confidence in STEM, which was really shown in the presentation before me. I thought that was a very excellent example of what I'm trying to say. But there really is no easy answer for how science engagement, there's no easy answer. Science engagement, and really to answer the question of how does it work. But is Gen Z the astrobiology generation? I truly do believe that it could be, and with your help, it can be. Think about it. For example, the Mars Perseverance mission is an astrobiology mission. NASA will be all over it for years, and this is a very unique opportunity to make astrobiology a household name, to raise awareness at your own university through classes and local schools. I mean, it's a chance to explore Mars. What better of an event to get Gen Z involved in astrobiology than to be on the forefront of something that incredible? Experts and teachers, right now, you're our leaders. And something really personal that made all the difference for me was being that teacher or that researcher, the one that goes the extra mile to seek out interested young people to mentor. It really does open up so many doors and pathways for the next generation of astrobiology scientists. Being in Year 12, I'm constantly asked by people pretty much anywhere what I want to do when I graduate. I give my answer, astrobiology, of course, and the next question is, well, what's that? What is astrobiology? Not many people around me really know, and it is a good question. People have to Google it usually. Unlike things like astrophysics, which is offered as an undergraduate degree course at so many universities, astrobiology is very, very multidisciplinary. I've learnt that it basically means that it can take many years of study and specialization in another science discipline before you can get into that field. That's what makes my time conducting research at the ACA even more incredible. I was on the steepest learning curve ever in my whole life so far, studying the origin and evolution of early life and working on it, and at times probably getting in the way of, real and cutting-edge astrobiology research. An absolutely incredible experience for someone of my age and inexperience. But it's only because the team at ACA invested their time to nurture my interest. To me as a student and hopefully an up-and-coming scientist, that's why it's so important. So what I would like to stress today is the positive impact that science engagement has had on me, and hopefully will have on many other students. It has been what's made all the difference in developing my love for science, and has been what's opened up all of these amazing possibilities to me. What you can do as experts in the field and leaders is making yourself available one student at a time, which means making astrobiology more accessible earlier to a wider audience, to more students, and to more potential science lovers. And this could be a powerful motivator to attract the best Gen Z researchers of the future into the field. Thank you. And I would just really like to thank Luke Steller and Martin van Kranendonk, who opened up really all these possibilities for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for such an amazing talk. And it's really great to see the perspective of someone who's like just finishing school and is so young and also has a lot of the barriers that people do today. And it's great to see that, you know, science and the scientific community has really come through for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have a lot of questions in the chat. We just have a lot of praise again of love coming through from everyone.
Question type of talk.
Yeah, I suppose, do you have any questions for the astrobiologists in the audience?
Oh, no, not really. Just I've been listening for the last 3 days to all the talks as much as I can because I've been at school, but
yeah,
it's been very amazing, and all the research really does make me, that everyone's been doing, really want to make me get into it. So it's been very perfect.
That's really great.
Experience. Yeah.
Have you narrowed down what section of astrobiology you're interested, like biology or chemistry or geology or a mix?
I'm leaning towards biology, but not entirely sure yet. Yeah.
All right, that's really great. So I suppose the best thing now would be for you to get on the chat, talk to the people who really have a lot of really positive things to say, and
yeah,
I think one would love to engage with you a bit more directly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So our next speaker is Arianna Ricchiuti, and I'm sorry if I completely butchered that, on communicating astrobiology, the role of Italian planetariums. So if you're here, please unmute, put your video up and share your screen, because we'd love to hear from you. Hi.
Hi, hello everyone. Yes, I'm gonna share my screen. Can you see that?
Yep. You just need to put it in presentation mode.
Yes. All right. Okay. So good evening, everyone. My name is Arianna. I come from Italy and I work as editor for the European Space Agency. So first of all, let me thank you because thank you so much for accepting my application, even though I belong to a completely different part of the world, where, by the way, is 8 a.m. So thank you so much for that. But today I'm here to share with you the results of my master thesis, which is called Communicating Astrobiology, the Role of Italian Planetariums. This thesis is part of the Master in Science Communication Franco-Pratico from SISSA in Trieste, and my supervisor is Italian science journalist Fabio Pagan. But before, a little bit of context. So how did I get to this topic? Well, simply because the first reason is that I've been working in a planetarium in Italy, which is the Planetarium of Bari in south of Italy, for almost 6 years. And I swear that was the most amazing job in the world. And the second reason is that I've been always interested in the search for life in the universe. And I also did my bachelor thesis in astrobiology. So what I did was basically trying to put these two passions together and trying to answer one question. How is astrobiology communicated in Italian planetariums? So we're going to have a very quick look at why astrobiology and why planetariums, and then we're going to go deeper into methods, results, and the conclusions about my work. So why astrobiology? Well, I don't think I really need to explain you that, because probably you know this much better than I do, but let's have just a look at this wonderful timeline by Scientific American. This timeline tries to summarize all milestones and discoveries in astrobiology from the 70s to today. As you can see, there have been extremely important and numerous discoveries in all fields related to astrobiology. So that's why astrobiology matters. A lot has happened, and therefore there's a lot to tell. This one might be maybe more interesting for you. So why planetariums matter? Why it is important to consider planetariums as tool for science communication? Well, because the desire, let's say the wish to recreate the night sky belongs to antiquity. The first attempt to do so belongs to Archimedes, and we are in 250 before Christ, when Archimedes tried to build this kind of metal globe that could recreate the night sky and the movements of the planets thanks to a water mechanism. Then there have been different attempts and projects over the years until the first planetarium projector was built in 1923 by Zeiss, which is an optical company. So today we can describe the planetariums as dome-shaped theaters for science communication that offer a one-off experience in terms of three-dimensional representation of the natural world and sensorial engagement. So here we go. How many planetariums are there in my country, in Italy? Well, I would say a lot, because we have 58 permanent planetariums in Italy, which is a small country, but still there are many planetariums. And these are, please notice that these are just the permanent ones. Then we have many inflatable ones going around in the country. And this is according to a national database. So we have 58 planetariums, and what I did was searching for them, searching for their emails, and then building an online questionnaire with 26 questions. The questions were meant to analyze different aspects in the communication of astrobiology that I will explain shortly. As you can see, 13 are with multiple choice, 6 with open answer, 4 with numerical scale, and 3 with single choice. So what I did was sending the questionnaire at the end of October to all these planetariums with a deadline for the end of January. One second. All right. So on 58 planetariums, 46 answered my questionnaire, which is simply an amazing feedback that allows us to have almost a complete coverage of the country. Then 3 planetariums emailed me just saying that they wouldn't have done the questionnaire simply because they don't do astrobiology in their activities, which is still an important data. So in general, we can say that astrobiology seems to have a small place in Italian planetariums activities. If we look at the frequency, and yeah, by the way, from now on, you will see screenshots directly taken from my questionnaire. If we look at the frequency, we see that more than half of the planetariums, so 41%, does astrobiology related activities just a few times per year, which is really low. Then we have less than once a year, so almost nothing. And according to the 11%, few times per month. So the frequency is really low. Then according to the 70% of the planetariums, they try to mention news and recent discoveries in the field. You can see it here, but still in most cases, 55%, they don't organize special events. So seems like astrobiology is just mentioned inside different types of activities. But what kind of activities deal with astrobiology? Well, we have mostly full dome shows, which are typical for planetariums, conferences with invited speakers, and 13 planetariums also mention laboratories. Then I divided the topics into 3 categories. The first, let's say, big category is astrophysics. And so the most chosen topics in astrophysics are telescopes and radio telescopes, so the instruments used to search for alien life in the universe. Then we have exoplanets with almost 74%, and then planetary habitability. If we move on to life sciences, biology, and chemistry, we can see that the most chosen topics are life on Mars, of course, and the evolution of life on our planet, followed by panspermia and the definition of life itself. But astrobiology can be also communicated through non-scientific subjects, and so we can see sci-fi, cinema, literature, and music are the most chosen ones. Who is responsible for communicating astrobiology in Italian planetariums? Well, maybe we could expect it, but almost 90% of the respondents state that it's about astronomers, followed by physicists and geologists. But I think it's important to notice how biologists, chemists, and other types of professionals like, I don't know, philosophers, artists, and so on, are much less represented. And in most cases, seems like these professionals belong to the staff of planetariums, but still, according to the 40% of the respondents, it's about external experts. So let's say invited speakers. What is the target of astrobiology in Italian planetariums? Well, the main target is the general public, as you can see, almost 74%, followed by schools, families, and children. But if we go deeper into schools, we discover that planetariums tend to target astrobiology towards elementary, medium, and high schools, but not that much for smaller kids and university students. And this is very important to notice. Then, how much is the audience interested in the search for life in the universe? Well, there's a very nice feedback because on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is not interesting and 10 very interesting, we see high interest for astrobiology no matter the age. And of course, in the case of children, as you can see, the interest seems to be a little bit higher, but still for adolescents and adults, we have peaks at 7, 8, 9, and 10 on a scale from 1 to 10. So this is really nice. The question number 24 of the questionnaire was meant to discover any biases, beliefs, and misconceptions related to the search for alien life in the universe. And well, there are quite tricky answers here. So we can say, according to the 76 of the respondents, people tend to believe that there are certainly other forms of life in the universe. So people tend to believe that there is alien life out there. Then we have the 54% stating that people tend to believe that we have never been to the moon. And then we have 41% with space exploration is just a waste of money. And I think this is really sad. And the other one, okay, this is very interesting. NASA and governments have already found the aliens, but they don't tell us. This is very funny. The last question of the questionnaire was meant to discover is that if astrobiology can help us reflect on more everyday life, social and philosophical issues, and it does. So astrobiology can help us reflecting on our place in the universe, according to more than the 80% of the respondents. And then astrobiology can help us reflecting on climate change, on the Earth and the environment, but also about the importance and the value of scientific research. And in smaller percentage, astrobiology can help us reflecting on international cooperation and citizen science. So after reflecting for a while on my results, I realized that they unveil a kind of contradiction because planetariums in Italy tend not to consider astrobiology very much, even though there's a strong passion for it stemming from the audience. So we can try to guess the reasons. The first reason might be the inner complexity of astrobiology, because as you know, astrobiology is really complex and varied. So maybe for many planetarium managers and workers might be a little bit difficult to summarize the topics related to astrobiology in just a 1-hour show or game. The second reason might be the limitations of mechanical projectors. This is a part that I haven't shown you in my presentation, but the first questions of the questionnaire were meant to discover the features of Italian planetariums. So for example, number of seats, diameter, and also type of projection system. So the majority of Italian planetariums has only all the mechanical projectors that can only recreate the night sky, but not cells, atoms, black holes, and other images that might be related to astrobiology.
So
the reason,
3 minutes left.
Yeah, of course, I'm at the end. The third reason might be the lack of biologists and chemists in Italian planetariums. So for the future, we really wish that Italian planetariums will renew their old projection system in order to expand the narration that is possible in a planetarium. And then I think planetariums in Italy should really try to involve more biologists and chemists and other types of professionals and start some kind of collaboration with research institutes. But also, planetariums should try to do more activities and shows about social, philosophical, and everyday life implications of astrobiology. And of course, planetariums in Italy should do more astrobiology in their activities. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for your wonderful talk. Again, just a lot of praise in the chat. Really interesting questionnaire with a lot of some interesting answers, especially the hiding of life that's by the US government and other government. That's
yes.
quite highly believed. So one question from the audience is there a way we can help get some of these shows developed for Italian planetariums? Just the wider astrobiology community?
Sorry, what do you mean by those shows developed for Italian planetariums? Which shows?
So I suppose to update the projections and provide better images and better.
Oh, well, okay, yeah. Well, of course, I think you can get in touch with Planet, which is the Association of Italian Planetariums. So that would be fantastic. But of course, you can get in touch with me because I'm in contact with all planetariums in Italy and also with the director of the Italian Association. So yes, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, and so another question from Anna. Did you get a chance to look at correlations between the responses to questions? For example, maybe people who don't believe we've been to the moon also think space exploration is a waste of money.
Good point. Thank you very much, Anna, for suggesting this. No, I didn't have this chance, but I think it's really interesting. So since I intend to expand my analysis all over Europe, so in other countries in Europe, I think I'm going to do that the next time. Thank you for the suggestion.
All right, thank you for that answer. And so just another question from Suda. It said, very nice work. And can you get access to an English version of your thesis?
I'm working on it because I presented this thesis 2 weeks ago, probably at the European Astrobiology Network Association Congress. And so everybody was telling me, okay, but you should do your thesis also in English. So I'm planning to do so. Thank you.
All right, great. Yeah, so your research looks really interesting and it looks like it has a lot of practical uses for improving biology, or not biology, but astrobiology and the communication of that in planetariums. Do you have like one big thing that you would like to change in planetariums to improve the presence of astrobiology and the communication of it?
I think the key point in that is really involving more biologists, because also what I've seen from my experience in the planetarium of Bari, but also going around in other planetariums in Italy, there are always only astronomers and physicists, and yes, they can, of course, they know something about astrobiology, but I think if a biologist is there to explain, I don't know, the origin of life, that would be much better than compared to an astronomer, of course. So yeah, I really wish biologists, chemists, biochemists would be more involved in the future.
I think that's a really important point, because we talk about how we're a multidisciplinary field, and so it's really important to get everyone from every discipline equally involved, rather than just relying on a couple of main opinions. And
also, if I have time, just to
say
that.
Yeah, you have a minute or two.
Okay, I think, for example, the audience, from what I've seen, people usually are really interested also in extremophiles, in microorganisms that have been to the ISS and so on. So these are topics that can, I think, only be communicated by biologists, or at least people who have been studying them. Instead, astronomers and physicists, they usually go to telescopes, radio telescopes, or attempt to communicate with alien life and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's a really important point to make.
Tardigrades, of course.
And so I think we've reached the end of today's session. Thank you for presenting, and thanks. Thanks everyone for presenting in this session. I think it's been a really great learning experience for everyone, and it's really good to see how astrobiology, I suppose communication and education is around the world in different areas, and the different techniques people use. So that brings us to a close, and Brendan Burns will be bringing us some final remarks before we finish the whole of the conference. So Brendan?
Thank you, Georgia. That was a really cool session. So before we, can you hear me okay, Maya?
Yeah.
Cool. So before we do a final meeting close, I just wanted to say a few words. Maybe if everyone on the organizing committee can just turn their cameras on, you can jump back on, Georgia and Erica. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to quickly, momentarily change my background. I want to show this is some artwork from my 8-year-old son. I don't know if you can read this backward. This says, "I love stromatolites." And this is his rendition of a stromatolite. And this is the actual inset of, and he's never seen one. And this is just from me describing what one looks like. And he drew it for me for this meeting, which I thought was really cool. That this is coming from such a small or a young mind, that kind of interest. And similarly, we just heard from Sarah, so the Year 12 student, incredibly well spoken, really well spoken, and the real world perspective, which I think is really fantastic that we're getting on the importance of astrobiology at different levels. And that, I think, is one thing that this meeting has done really well, apart from some awesome science, demonstrating the importance of communication and engaging with community and kids, such as the work that Luke and Bonnie did in the Pilbara. All this is really important. And I guess with the world that's kind of literally and metaphorically on fire at the moment, I think it's really good that we've also fostered a hugely inclusive atmosphere at this meeting. We've crossed cultural and academic boundaries across the Asia Pacific, but also getting Europe and the US. Thanks for everyone for getting up at weird hours. I'm on Gadigal land in Australia, and I want to acknowledge First Nations people that were here long before I was. We heard Sarah Jane, her beautiful song she wrote for this meeting, She Worlds, I think it was called. We heard stories about the Navajo Nation in North America and the Maoris in New Zealand. And all of this was the importance of connectivity between Indigenous people and science. And I think we as an astrobiology community has a great opportunity to forge genuine partnerships and I guess be part of a catalyst of change, of recognition and cultural awareness, which I, for one, feel really strongly about. So I just want to, just in the last couple of minutes, just wanted to take the time to acknowledge a few people that made this event possible. It might seem like to people that running an online event is less work, but logistically there's so much that goes into it. In our leadership roles in the ACA, Martin, Palais and myself have seen this event grow, but we've got no desire to take credit for other people's hard work. So big shout out to everyone on the scientific organised committee, mainly based at UNSW. Georgia, Albert, all your background work, all the great sharing it's just done. Luke, your enthusiasm is unbelievably infectious, and your connection with Sarah made her special contribution possible. So thank you so much for that. Bonnie, your fantastic work, especially during the meeting, manning all the social media channels, and I think you tweeted every single talk, which is absolutely incredible. So thank you so much. But two people that deserve really special thanks. Erica, you've been amazing, putting everything together from sorting abstracts, the conference program, organising all the conference logistics, taking over chairing when chairs like me fell over. You've just done a fantastic job in keeping everything going. It's been, so thank you so much for that. And then finally, Anna, without you, this meeting I don't actually think would have been possible. When everything went pear-shaped with the pandemic, you didn't give up. And to make this virtual conference a reality and a success, I think is pretty much largely down to you. From inviting speakers, sorting this lovely Zoom platform that we now have, making sure every single session the speakers were co-hosts so we didn't get Zoom bombed, which I think is actually really important. So you've been the driving force, and on behalf of everyone, thank you so very much. And for Erica and Anna, I've just got, I don't know if you can see this, a small gift of appreciation, some wine and chocolates. I could claim that I wrapped this myself, but you can actually find it in Dan Murphy's. That's a hint for anybody. Or if you come to Australia, another hint. So Erica, when you make it down from the Blue Mountains, or Anna, same on campus, I'll have these here for you, unless I get hungry and thirsty, and then you're in trouble. So if everyone can give a virtual clap across the globe, particularly for Erica and Anna, but everyone on the organising committee. So thanks so much for making it possible. It brings everybody together. So I'm going to pass to our Commander-in-Chief, Martin, just for a final meeting close-off. So Martin, you can have the comms and take over the flight deck to end this meeting.
Thanks, Brendan. And yeah, very well said. These things are always a lot of work. I think what I was really happy about was the opportunity to have people participate that maybe normally wouldn't have. So, you know, we've all heard about the bad side of this COVID world, but it's also got some good side and also developed some new opportunities, which I think we've seen here. We've had a huge attendance of participants from India and Pakistan, and from throughout the Australasian region, and also surprisingly to me anyway, a really big cohort from South America, which is wonderful to see. And I think it shows that there's a real interest in astrobiology around the world, and that this sort of a meeting can provide a real platform for, I think one of the most important things is, of course, making connections, new links through the chats, inspiring ideas from students, researchers, all walks of life. I think one of the great things that I've found with astrobiology is it's really inclusive. I think there's always a really genuine warm welcome for young, bright, enthusiastic minds to join our quest, because it's something that's of value to everyone. And so the example of Sarah Nolan having participated here and given her perspective, I think is really been fantastic to see. So I was really happy with the way it went out. And I think it's worth also noting that, and Sarah maybe didn't touch on this particularly, but I know that I've heard the view that some people and kids in school think that, oh, science has been done and stuff, but astrobiology shows that there's still so much to be done in so many different avenues. You know, finding new exoplanets. What are they like? Refining our technology so we can get a better glimpse, a deep dive into paleobiology and all kinds of things in between. So astrobiology is absolutely a growing discipline. I think it touches a nerve for a lot of people. And the great thing about it from a human and perspective side is that it is so inclusive. And so I think really there are opportunities for so many people to get involved. So I certainly encourage everyone who is involved in this side of research to continue your outreach activities. I think what I love to hear from Sarah is that, you know, that extra special effort that you put in gets rewarded by the output that comes back from those who are engaged with, and they will of course pass that on. So like anything, it's about word of mouth, and it's about personal connections. And in that way, it's a very human endeavor that we're all involved in. So I'd just like to close off by echoing Brendan's words and thanking Anna and Erica and all the rest for developing a really great program. lots of content to sit back and think about for the next couple of days. And I wish all of you very well for the future and certainly for the weekend. Enjoy yourself, and yeah, good luck with your future research. Bye for now from the ACA, and good luck to everyone.